exactly do you want me to?
I'll tell you. Okay, so hi everyone. Michelle Ferreri here, Member of Parliament for Peterborough Kawartha, and this is a very, very heavy, very emotional interview that I'm going to do with this lovely woman, Hayley. And Hayley, thank you for letting me come into your home today to share this story. We've been talking back and forth. You reached out to me a few months ago and told me your awful story of your son being murdered and sort of the re-victimization that you've experienced. I just want to make sure, guys, can you hear me? I have it set up in a way. I just want to ensure that you can hear, that the volume is okay. If you guys could let me know that, that would be really, really good. Okay, I think we're good for sound. You guys can hear. And Hayley, if you could just say something to make sure people can hear. Okay, so after my, thank you, Annette. After my interaction with Hayley, we talked back and forth, and public safety has become a significant concern in Canada. The justice system continues to be under scrutiny, and for good reason, because you have violent repeat offenders that are out. You have violent crime is up 39% since 2015. Violent gun crimes is up 101% since 2015. And 46% of Canadians have confidence in the justice system. And I can tell you, Hayley probably is not in that 46%. So Hayley, I'm going to get you to start by explaining. I'm going to ask you what happened and whatever you're comfortable sharing. Obviously, we have a lot of issues we're going to cover in this, but there is a petition as well that we're asking for you guys to sound. The audio is still off, the voice. Okay. Okay, so Hayley, tell me, your son Bradley was murdered. When was he murdered?
Bradley was murdered November 19th of 2018.
Okay. And the young offender that murdered Bradley, can you tell people, and I'll bring this up a little bit so people can hear you. Can you tell people he was on house arrest?
Peter Buktis was on 24-hour house arrest under his parents' care for guns and drug charges at the time of my son Bradley Pogue's murder.
Okay, so he shouldn't have been.
He should not have been
unsupervised.
He should not have been unsupervised. He should not have been out of his parents' care, and they drove him to go pay a drug dealer off after they found him selling drugs in their home. So first negligence is they didn't call the police when they found him selling drugs. Second negligence was they actually drove their child, or they drove their son to go pay the drug dealer. And their third negligence is they let him out of the car and went to go park their car where Peter Buktis AWOL'd. And while he was AWOL'd, he murdered my son, Bradley Pogue.
How old was Bradley?
Bradley was 24 years old, a father of a 2.5-year-old little girl. He had been at work all day and was playing video games when he received a phone call from an Adam DeGaines asking for some weed, which Bradley said, sure, no problem. Bradley had no clue what he was about to walk into. My older son, Cody, had a bad feeling. It just didn't seem right, so Cody went with him. What they didn't know was there was Peter Buktis also with Adam DeGaines, and apparently Adam owed Peter Buktis money, and Peter Buktis threatened to riddle his mom's house with bullets if Adam did not find somebody to rob. So 4 phone calls later, Bradley was the 5th phone call, and Bradley answered the phone, and that was the beginning of the end of his life. They went to the plaza, which was 5 minutes from their home. Cody, being the intuitive big brother, went with him. He had a bad feeling. When they got there, they were expecting to meet just Adam. There was another person there that Bradley or Cody had never met in his life. And 1 minute later, Bradley was murdered by that one person that he had never met.
I think what's really tough is it was such a senseless, violent crime over a bag of weed, like to murder somebody over this. But I think where we want to hone in on this and where the justice system comes into play, aside from like the extreme traumatic grief that you're experiencing, Hayley, like it's just, it's awful, but he should have never been in that position. He should have never been unsupervised. It was a failure on the system. And then So we created a petition that we've put the link in that we would love you guys to sign. I'm going to talk about that, and then I'm going to talk about a couple other things that we need to change. So the petition reads that we, the undersigned citizens of Canada, call upon the Minister of Justice to raise parole eligibility from 7 to 10 years for Peter Bouktis and make it mandatory that all young offenders convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with adult sentence not be eligible for parole until serving minimum 10 years in federal prison, and that all repeat young offenders 17 years of age or older guilty of indictable firearms offenses and or murder charges be transferred to a provincial federal institution on their 18th birthday while awaiting sentence. And one of the reasons this was really key for you is because you feel like your son's murderer never, and you'll notice I don't like saying his name because I don't like giving attention. That's my own personal opinions. But he hasn't served in a federal state. He's been, as you call it, enjoying sort of video games and pizza.
So he was in Ray of Hope young offender facility from the day after the murder up until last year, April.
So I think what I want to state too, Hayley, is there is a place for young offenders and people to get into rehabilitation. There are lost kids who do sort of petty crimes that you know can be rehabilitated and restored. That 100% that is fair. Like, absolutely, you should come out of prison or an institution better. You shouldn't come out worse. And there's lots of people who, you know, by no fault of their own, get into bad situations and they make petty crimes. This is different. This is when you're talking about firearms. This guy was up on how many?
He was up on guns and drug charges at the time of Bradley's murder. He was under 24-hour house arrest under his parents' care. Yeah. And they drove him to go pay a drug dealer instead of calling the police. Then they drove him to pay the drug dealer. Second, negligence to my son. Third, they let Peter out of the car so that they could go and park their car, giving him the opportunity to AWOL.
So the other thing, so if you can sign that petition, please share it. Hayley is really asking for that. She knows, like, these petitions don't change the system per se, but they're very important to voice what the people want. They're a critical piece of the democratic process to say, things have to change. We, the people, the people are in charge, have to do this. The second thing I want to point out, guys, is the judicial vacancies. There is massive vacancies for judges, which is backlogging the judicial system. So, Minister Varani was made minister in July of 2023. There were 79 vacancies. So you can imagine how backlogged, like this happened when, and you're still in the midst of this, right?
Absolutely. It's and we're waiting for he's convicted. He's appealed the entire thing.
And it re-victimizes victims over and over. The longer this drags out, the worse it is for everyone. And so you have this brutal backlog in the justice system, and a lot of this is because there is not enough judges appointed. It is the justice minister's job to appoint these judges. So when Minister Varani was made minister in July of 2023, there were 79 vacancies. As of May 1st, 2024, there are 57 vacancies. He has only filled 28% of these vacancies since being appointed, despite saying this was a serious critical timing. And so, again, they failed. The other thing that I think is very, very important is we have a Canadian Victim Bill of Rights. It was created by former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, and yet there is nobody to enforce these Victim Bill of Rights. So you have victims' rights have been pushed down and criminals' rights have been pushed up under this Liberal NDP government. And it's awful. It's awful. So ensuring victims' rights, the Federal Ombudsman's Office is necessary, but this is insufficient. This is from an article, theconversation.com. There is no authority specifically dedicated to ensuring the implementation of the Canadian Victims Bill of Rights. Victims must rely on the Office of the Federal Ombudsman for Victims of Crimes. So imagine poor Hayley, who's completely traumatized. Now she has to do all of the back end work. She has to phone, wait on hold. If she even gets through somebody, maybe they'll call her back. It's just a disaster.
It is like being, every day I wake up and Bradley died yesterday to me. I have been, Peter Bouktis, and I do like to say his name because he was hidden for so long. Peter Bouktis was in a young offender facility. He turned 18 6 months after he murdered Brad. He stayed in that young offender facility until he was 21. And he was convicted and sentenced as an adult to a life sentence last April. And he is still in a provincial jail, which means me, the victim, has no clue where he is. I'm only allowed to know where he is when he's in the federal system. Why?
So if he got out, do they tell you?
Well, no, he's eligible for parole next November, and that's what I'm trying to stop. But I don't know where he is. They won't tell me anything until he's in the federal jail. But right now, he's in the provincial jail. Why he's in the provincial jail after being sentenced to a life sentence, I don't know. Why is he in a provincial jail? Why? Why isn't he in a federal jail? Where he was at the time while he was in the young offender facility, he was trying to affiliate himself with those gang members in the federal jail. So he was already setting up to become a part of the gang members in the jail while he was in the young offender facility. He had drugs being dropped off by drones in the young offender facility. He assaulted two young offenders in the young offender facility. He bribed the owners of the facility after being caught with an incriminating cell phone. And all those charges were charged, but he's now still in a provincial jail.
So how do you feel about your rights as a victim?
What rights? I don't have any rights. Yeah. I don't have any rights. I have a voice. I am a mother that is determined to fight for justice, not for Bradley, not only for Bradley, for all Canadians that are victims of our justice system at the hands of this liberal government that we, for whatever reason, still have in control. It needs to change. We need to feel safe. I don't leave my home anymore. If my child was murdered going to meet a friend at a store to give him a bag of weed, he was murdered. This society is not safe. We need change. We need signatures to change the outcome. This young offender at the time was also under 24-hour house arrest at the time of him murdering my son, under his parents' watchful eye.
I think what we want to end on, Hayley, is we want people to sign the petition. You can do a Google search of Hayley's story. It's been in the news multiple times. It's a very sad situation of a failed system, you know. And I think what we're asking for you guys today is to recognize that it is broken, to recognize that we need change. And by signing this petition, you're helping Hayley, who up to this point, I feel like you do feel like you haven't really been able to feel heard. That was the first thing he said to me on the phone.
Yes,
the first time
thank
we talked.
you. I feel heard, validated.
And I think that's very unfortunate when you have these situations. So I really appreciate you sharing your story and your grief with everybody. And I do feel hopeful we will get change, Hayley. I do feel hopeful.
I really do also. Another broken part of our system also is Adam DeGanis was released from prison. He was charged with second-degree murder, downgraded to manslaughter for whatever reason, I don't know. But he did his 5.5 years in jail, was released, and 20 weeks later there was a provincial-wide warrant for his arrest for guns, drugs, weapons, break-ins, disguises, and he is now back in prison. So there's another failure of our system. We Canadians need to stick together. We need to fight for our rights. We live in a country that we should have these rights, and our rights are just being taken, and I don't know how to stop it. I just don't know how to stop it. But I know that I won't stop fighting, not only for Bradley, but for all Canadians that have been victimized and re-victimized and re-victimized by the justice system.
Thank you so much. I see the pictures behind. I don't know if folks can see them. They're up there. You can see it's Hayley's family. She's a mom first, right? And so I just want to say thank you. Please share the petition above. We only have a couple weeks left to sign it, so we'd like to have as many signatures on that as possible to send a message. And I promise you, we're fighting. We've got to do some corrections here.
Change doesn't happen unless we fight for it. And trust me, this mama bear that's what my life is now, is to fight for justice. And not just for Brad, for all Canadians that may not be strong enough, that don't know how to, that don't have the resources. They're hard to find. Perseverance will pay off. And the more louder we are, the more signatures we get, somebody's going to have to take accountability and make changes. And it starts with us. Without us making these signatures, we're going to just still live in the same messed up system that we are in. Bradley was a completely innocent victim. And the Canadian justice system has just continued to make my family a victim. And the perpetrators have all the rights. I'm paying for their meals right now. It just needs to change. And please, please, if it's not for myself or for Bradley, it's for every Canadian out there that has been a victim of the Canadian justice system and the failures that continue to happen because the Liberal government just doesn't feel that we're a priority. A child being murdered. I have a granddaughter that's 2.5, that was 2.5. Her dad's been gone for 5.5 years. This is not acceptable. Please sign the petition. Please, let's us all get together and make the change together. It starts with us, it ends with us. Thank you so much. In loving memory of Bradley Pogue.
Thank you, Hayley. Thanks, guys.